I'm Peter Lyssiotis. I make books. I also make photographs, do some writing and make films. The reason I make books is because all of these separate strains actually meet and coalesce between the covers of books. There's also a European tradition that interests me where images and writing exist between covers, and as a result of being in a book you have an opportunity of working with a narrative, and that combination of an image and a text seems to be the narrative of our times in a way. Quite often I make these works on my own, but also I like to collaborate with other people, and that has its benefits. When you're on your own, quite often you don't dare as much as you do when you're working with someone else. If an idea frightens you a little bit, or it's a little bit out of the ordinary to fit into your own work, you kind of think, oh, will I, won't I, will I, won't I, and inevitably you fall on the conservative side and you don't. But when you're working with someone else, if you throw up an idea that even you've rejected in previous projects and they say that could work, then you feel encouraged, you're enthused to follow a track that you normally wouldn't. I met a person from Israel, and she'd been raised on a kibbutz in the Negev desert at a point where the two communities, the Israeli community and the Palestinian community, are most obviously separated. So there's one of those mythical green lines that exists between the two communities. And it occurred to me that I'd been born in a country too that had a green line drawn across it, which is Cyprus. And so we thought we'd make something in relation to that. And that was that direct political commentary of how these green lines come about, how they rule people's lives, who puts them there, who draws them there, who sees them, even though there are no green lines. And so with these kind of loaded themes, we began to make Homeland, and the kind of design imperative in this book was the green line. And as you leaf through the work, the green line begins to occupy more and more space and eliminate more and more of the human presence. And so, in a way, we're saying, politicians, map makers, decision makers, governments virtually eliminate the human element. It was also the first work that I'd been involved in that had been printed digitally. We're feeding acid-free linen paper into a computer that normally takes A4 sheets of chemically soaked papers, and the images which result aren't that crystal sharp, clear image that we're accustomed to. That kind of fuzziness, to my way of looking at it, also plays on that theme of memory. How much of what I remember as a 4-year-old in Cyprus is true, and how much is it a memory which has been given to me? How much of what she remembers of growing up and patting a goat and mucking around with other kids on the kibbutz is true, and how much has it been idealised in the interim? So the form, although it's not the primary consideration of the work, does come into play and affects the reading of the work. Whenever you make work, it just doesn't appear out of the vapour, out of the ether. It appears out of a particular time and a particular situation that you're living through. When I found photomontage through John Hartfield, there was a statement that he made which he had made into a sign and hung over his workshop where he said, use photography as a weapon. So I adopted the photomontage approach to making images because of its political ability. Political photomontage is like a pit bull. It goes straight for the jugular, and it is propaganda. But certain times demand propaganda. Sometimes there's no room for subtlety. I think the 80s and 90s and the present time in Australia has been a time when we have needed that kind of approach to making art, where you throw subtlety out the back window and walk through the front door with a with a big stick.